Live.
Live. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's conversation. We're in Let's Talk, and I'm Michelle Pettis. I guess your conversation facilitator, I guess you could call it. We started these conversations to talk about food, to talk about eating, to talk about hunger, how we manage all that. And just as a little background, if you've never joined us before, like I said, my name is Michelle Pettis. I am the author of Leaving Large, a food addict's memoir, soon to be released. We don't know a date exactly. How I overcame a 40-year battle over obesity. And the deal is, over the course of my lifetime, I have gained and lost 700 pounds. No, you can't really tell it right now, but that was the case. I was a yo-yo dieter. I was a food addict. I was a sugar addict, and just couldn't get a handle on how to manage food. Notice I don't say relationship with food. I say manage food, because the truth is we manage food. We have relationships with people, right? We have relationships with people. We don't have relationships with inanimate objects. And food is an inanimate object, but emotions are tied to it. Therefore, we think it's a relationship. And I know that's a lot to unpack, but that's the reality, is that food is so closely aligned with our emotions and our relationships with people that sometimes we get the connections confused. And we think it's the food that we're craving, and it's actually a certain feeling. It's a certain emotion. And I know this because that's what my book is about. I spent 40 years eating for the wrong reasons, eating for reasons that had nothing to do with nutrition, nothing to do with nourishment, nothing to do with hunger, but everything to do with something else, right? And the something else, one of the something else's that we're going to talk about tonight is relationship. We have as our guest who is going to tell us about her journey. Her journey, and she looks so fit and fabulous. Now, we're going to welcome Nancy Ward. Our conversation tonight is stress escaping, escaping, and food. And the thing is, food is so closely aligned to so many things. It's just integral. It's integral in almost every facet of our life. And that's what we talk about in these conversations. We've talked about stress, family, and food. We've talked about stress, success in food. We have a conversation coming up about stress, grief in food. So we find ourselves really trying to manage food and sometimes not doing the best job of it with these everyday circumstances that just keep coming at us. And so our mission with these conversations is to peel back the covers, right? To peel back the covers, to have some real frank truth, some conversations about how we can do that, and we do that with people that have walked the walk. They're just not talking the talk. They've actually gone through some experiences, and they have some tips that they can share about how we can really, really keep food in its proper perspective as we go through our everyday life, right? So, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you want to come up on stage and join the conversation, you can do that. Dr. Colleen Meyer is our moderator. She will give that information to you. But please let this be. We just don't want to be pushing heads up here. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to answer your questions. And because certainly if you have a question, that means somebody else has a question. If you have a comment, please put it in the chat. If you know somebody that needs this conversation, share it. If you're watching it on YouTube and watching on your Facebook page, share it with your friends. Because here's the deal: is that I'm speaking from the point of an African American woman, as a Black woman. 4 out of 5 African American women are overweight or obese. That means that we got some issues going on with how we manage food. So if it's not you, it's 4 or 5 of your friends that need to be in on this, because there's some relationship stuff that's swirling around. We all got some exes. We all got some exes that we need to deal with. With that,
Michelle, can I jump in real quick?
mhm,
Somebody's trying to come on stage by the name of Wonder Woman, and I'm not able to because she needs her camera turned on. So there's no way. So Nancy, if that's your sister, she would have to turn her camera on before we can bring her to stage.
Okay.
if
All
you
right.
wanted to text
Can
her.
she hear you?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So with that, Nancy, please, I want you to meet Nancy Ward. She's going to tell us about her journey. And Nancy, you like, how long ago did you shed the weight? It's been what, 20 years at least, right?
15.
14.
2006, so 15 years ago.
Okay, I rounded up. That's what we do. So just introduce yourself to our viewers and kind of give us a snapshot, and we'll let the audience guide, jump in with questions, and we'll get going.
As Michelle mentioned, my name is Nancy Ward. At the time that I worked with Michelle, I was Nancy Butler, and I was her sales assistant at the radio station we worked together at. That's how long ago that was. And I was very, very, very young back then. But as time went on, I was married and we had children. We had two boys who are now two young men. And the weight packed on after the first child, I gained 50 pounds. I lost a little bit of that, but not all of it. And then a few years later, we had our second child. I gained 35 pounds. And I just bought bigger clothes. So part of the weight gain was from having babies and not exercising and eating right to lose the weight. But part of it was being engaged with eating the wrong things. I was married, so I wasn't trying to attract additional attention. And no one in my circle said, Nancy, you're gaining weight. Like, you know, you're going up in weight instead of going down. And some people even said, "Oh, I see you have baby weight." But as the baby becomes 5 and 10 and 15, it's no longer baby weight. It's extra weight that you really can't afford to have. And also during that time, my marriage was a roller coaster. There were good days, bad days. As any marriage, you would have those circumstances, but it became to the point where it was no longer healthy for me to be in the marriage emotionally. There was no physical abuse, but there was emotional, I would say emotional abuse. I was married to a great guy. I tell everyone, oh, he was funny, he was smart, he was generous, but he had a really bad allergy that we could not seem to cure. And that was an allergy to being monogamous. And that that had took a toll on me. And I found comfort in food. I would every day I would stop at Starbucks and I would have a sugary coffee with one of their sugary Danish. And it was an expensive habit too, because if you frequent Starbucks, it's not $1.19 at like you do at the in Atlanta. We have Quick Trip. I think in your area, Michelle, you might be the equivalent of a Wawa.
Uh-huh.
But so that was my habit. On the way to work, I would stop and get my sugary coffee, my sugary Danish. That was not enough. At the end of the day, I would go back to the gas station and I would pick up chocolate covered donuts, you know, the little miniature donuts from Hostess. And there's about 6 in that pack. But what you don't realize is that the 6 donuts is a serving of 2. I always thought it was a serving of 1 because I would eat all 6 donuts. But if you look at the back at the the information, it's 3 donuts is 1 serving. So I was eating 2 servings at about 400 calories per serving. So that's like 800 calories per pack of donuts. And I was doing this on a daily basis. As and it gave me comfort. It made me feel good. It tastes good. It made me feel good, and it became my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we can lose ourselves in relationships because we don't want to face the end of something that we've hoped for and dreamt for. Like I said, we had 2 young children at the time, and I told myself I have to make this work because no one's going to want a divorced woman with 2 young children. I had convinced myself I have to stay in this marriage. I have to make it work. Like I said, I wasn't being physically abused. We lived a good life. We traveled. We had great family vacations, but emotionally, I was drained.
You know what?
And
I do want to ask you this question. All right.
mhm,
I actually have two questions. You said no one's going to want a divorced woman with two children,
mhm,
right? And when I hear that that was your definition of yourself, right? And
right,
when I look at you now, and even when I looked at you then, I saw your definition of yourself. I saw you as so much more than that, right? It wasn't just those two things. I mean, divorced, two children. I mean, a mother, that's part of it. But smart, funny, compassionate. I mean, there's like a whole list of things that I saw that would define you, not just those things. So I want you to talk about that, and then because I don't know if it was like that for you, but once I started to lose weight, I started to see myself in a different light. I started to see other qualities that had been obscured by the weight.
mhm.
The second thing is, even though you mentioned that you were my sales assistant, you went on to become a salesperson,
I did.
and we were both outside salespeople driving. And you mentioned the Wawa or the Quick Trip. One of the things that I write about and talk about is that people used to say to me, "Oh my God, sales, that must be so stressful. That must be a stressful job." And I'm like, "Oh no, it's not stressful. I love my job. I did and I do, but it was stressful. But I never felt it because, like you, um, I would go whenever I went to the gas station. I bought snacks. I was never hungry. I mean, because so whether a presentation was coming up, or I just finished a presentation, I know what was going on. What all any of the stress that was swirling around that job was always obscured by the fact that I spent more time, and we spent more time at gas stations and with gas station food than most people,
Right,
because it was right there. And
right.
that and so I want you to kind of unpack how marriage, kids, and a job. I'm assuming you felt some of the same stress I did. Maybe even more. Maybe even more. And how that impacted how you moved around.
Well, let's go back to the very beginning when you're dating someone. Um, a lot of the dates surround food. You're eating together, you're having conversation. I met my ex-husband in college. So at that time, our dates were at McDonald's or at a pizza shop. And then, as we grew in our careers and we could afford better dinners, we would go out to eat. And even before kids, it was our date night consisted of going to Jerry Subs and Pizza in your area, and we would get, two sugary drinks, French fries, and a sub. And we would watch a movie because back then they had Blockbuster. So that was our date night, and that became our norm. Nothing wrong with that, but when you're doing it consistently and frequently and not exercising, it's going to show and have wear and tear on your body. So that's how it started, around the food. And then, of course, the kids come. So you're eating, not so great food with the kids. And then as they became older, we're still, I'm working full-time job. My ex-husband was working full-time job. So there were a lot of pizza nights, a lot of hot dog nights, a lot of quick, fast, unhealthy foods. We didn't have the Hello Fresh and the Blue Aprons that we have today back then during that time. So we were just all around, we were making poor food choices. He was gaining weight. I was gaining weight. I gained even more weight because of the child birth thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with work, it was stressful because I did segue from being a sales assistant to being a commissioned salesperson. And as the newest kid on the block, you had to, I remember, Michelle, I remember you giving me a phone book. That's how long ago this was. And encouraging me to prospect in the phone book because we didn't have the World Wide Web. We didn't have Google. And we would go to office. I don't know if you remember this. We would go to office buildings and you would encourage me to look at the directory to see if there were businesses that made sense for our audience. So yes, it was stressful. My husband at the time, he did not want me to go into sales. I don't know if you knew that, because he knew it was 100% commission. Whereas as a sales assistant, I wasn't making a ton of money, but it was consistent money.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that stress, and it was a slow road, but I've been in it over 20 years now, so it was a good choice. And I'm still working in radio, still working for the same company that Michelle and I worked in over, over 20 years ago. But that the self identity, when you're in a relationship and your mate is not validating you, even though, how many people were on our sales team at that time? Maybe 10. You and some of the others may have felt or may have seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, because the person that I am in covenant with is not validating me. They're not reinforcing that. So I'm receiving and hearing and perceiving something totally opposite from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost myself. When I was younger, I used to play the piano. I stopped playing the piano. I used to do other activities and hobbies that I kind of put to the side because I was a mother now, I was a wife now, and we didn't share those interests. We did share some interests, but those interests that were very personal and specific to myself, I allowed them to fall away. And I lost myself, and I found weight. And yeah, so
So what was a turning point for you? I asked that question again because in my book there's a chapter called Rock Bottom,
mhm,
and I've had, I don't know, probably over the 40 years, I probably had 40 rock bottom moments, that said, okay, I'm changing now. This is it. And then something happens and it's not. But I did have a moment with an ex uh, before I knew you, and we were off again, on again, and then we were off, and I like gained a lot of weight, right? And then I saw him, and he saw me in his larger size, and I saw the surprise and shock in his face after I had gained this weight. And then I went on a crash diet and lost it. Then we got together. That's who I moved up here to DC with. And then we broke up. And guess what? I gained the weight all back.
mm.
So anyway, enough about that. What I want to know is did you have like one moment that said, when you said to yourself, this is it, I'm gonna regain my life, or
I
did it happen over time? Can you talk about that moment?
did. So as I was gaining weight and just buying bigger pair of pants, a bigger dress, a bigger shirt, not realizing, Nancy, you're gaining weight, stop. I would just go to the store and buy a bigger pair of pants that fit better. But I remember one day my mother was visiting me in Maryland from New York, and she said, Nancy, you're getting a little pudgy. You need to watch that. And at the time I weighed myself, and I was like, and I told myself, well, no one else is saying that. My husband wasn't saying, my friends wasn't saying it. And I gained 20 more pounds after she said that to me. But by this time, my mother had passed, and she had passed away from hypertension related illness. 2 years after she passed, my aunt also passed away from hypertension related illness. My grandmother had hypertension. So as my marriage is becoming more unraveled, I go to the doctor, and I'm having my physical, my annual, like we do, like we should. And he says, oh, your blood pressure is elevated. Oh, and this is elevated. Oh, and this is, I was having for the first time in my life, real health issues brought to my attention. And I panicked. When I heard hypertension, I had a flashback to my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother. And at that point, that day, I reached out to my sister, Joanna Ward, who was already living in Atlanta. I was in Maryland. And I said, I need help. And I reached out to her because she is a faith and fitness expert. and I knew she could help me.
So up until that point, had she mentioned anything to you?
Up until that point, I knew what she, now this is the funny thing. I knew she was a personal trainer, fitness instructor. She had been on Survivor. I had attended one of her classes in South Carolina where she was living at the time, once upon a time. So I knew she had the skill set, but I never reached out. I never took advantage of it until I felt desperate enough to do so.
Got it.
She
Got it.
began training me long distance on the
Wow.
phone.
Wow.
And she
So how
said,
did that work? How did that work?
well, she's also an ordained minister. So she
Hmm.
said, this is what we're going to do. You're going to fast for 10 days. And I was like, say again? No, fasting meaning you're cutting. It wasn't an absolute fast where I didn't have any food, but it was a fast from sugar, a fast from meat, a fast from certain foods for 10 days. And I said, I can't do that. She said, oh, yes, you can, and you will. And she said, you're going to get up, we're going to pray, and then you're going to do 30 minutes of exercise at a minimum. And I said, I already get up early. I think I was getting up at maybe 6. And she said, no, you're going to get up at 5. And I said, I can't do that. And she said, yes, you can, and yes, you will. So she called faithfully every day, rain or shine. 5 o'clock, we would start the day in prayer. I would go out and I would walk my neighborhood for 30 minutes. And if it was raining, I said, well, it's raining today, so I don't think I'm going to walk. She said, oh, yes, you will. And yes, you can. And I did in the rain.
Hmm.
And 5 pounds came off, and then 10 pounds came off just walking 30 minutes every day. And she said, well, now you have to start jogging it.
Hmm.
Walking, you've plateaued, like the weight stopped coming off. She said you have to now walk jog until you could jog the whole route. And I didn't think I could do it, but I did. And I was like, oh my God, I jogged the whole way.
Hmm.
And then I had to step it up again, and I actually started going to the gym using their equipment. And my goal was 40 pounds by 40. So from January of that year to my birthday in June, I dropped 40 pounds.
I
Yeah.
remember I came to the party. I came to the white party.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but it was a white party, and I had purchased a suit, a pantsuit, maybe in April. And I couldn't fit it at that time, but I had confidence that I would. And my sister said, it's going to be too big, get a size smaller. And I said, no, like I could not even see myself in a single digit size at that time. So I went ahead and bought the double digit size, and it was too big.
Nancy, I got to tell you something. I'm getting some chills with all of this that you just said, because all of this that you just said is what we do in I Am Brand New, what we do in my coaching program. And it is just, even with what you said about getting the suit right. It's the notion of we do Fashionista Friday, right? And it's like, post your goal outfit. Clothes aren't the goal for everybody, but for many of us, clothes are, and it represents how we want to show up in the world. And so to be able to see a size that you're working toward, I'm like, post it in the group, put it on your phone, put it on your refrigerator, hang it up in your closet. Think about it every day, because this is your goal outfit. It's just it's Fashionista Friday.
Mhm.
And so to hear that, I'm like, yeah, this is real stuff. And then the notion of getting up and having an accountability partner, which is, I mean, even though your sister trained you, what I found and what I find is, so many times, you can say to yourself, I'm going to get up and walk, or I'm going to work out, or I'm going to do it. But it's easy. We find it easy to let go of what we tell ourselves. But if
Correct.
somebody else is involved, we feel more accountable. We feel more accountable to one another.
That's
And
critical. That's critical.
and I will tell you, one of our members, like when COVID started last year, we got on the phone, and I love this. I called her and I said, the only difference, even then, between the people that gain weight during COVID and the people that lose weight during COVID and the people that maintain their weight is the story that they tell themselves.
Hmm.
And we got and we walked every day, sometimes twice a day. When it first started, at the end of 3 months, she lost either 16 pounds or 13 pounds. I think it was 13 pounds. And she was in Texas. She was in Texas. I was in Maryland. I was like, oh my God, what a great way to multitask. So you're talking to your friend and you're tying it, even if you don't want to walk. You're not a walker, you're not an exerciser, but you're tying it to something that you do enjoy, which is having a conversation with your friend. So hearing that, and the fact that you set the intention with your sister, you can and you will. You can and you will. I love that. But go ahead.
She was she was 600 miles away, and she might as well have been in front of me, but she would not let me give in to rain. I'm not walking today because it's raining. She said, "Oh, you have an umbrella, right?"
Right.
Yeah. Walk with your, and you need that person to push you, because it's so much easier to hug your pillow and stay under the covers instead of getting up and pushing these bodies to be exercised. And prior to that episode of me getting the poor report, I would say, from my physical that year, if I had water, it was colored water. It was pink, or it was yellow, or it was brown mixed with iced tea. I was not a water drinker. So part of that 10-day fast was giving up drinking anything but water. And now that's my go-to. Like, I would rather have water than anything. But
Yes.
I had to retrain my taste buds.
Yes.
And it's a mind over matter situation too, because I never would have thought me not have a lemonade or iced tea.
Mhm.
Now I still drink those from time to time, but my primary choice of beverage is water.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I will. Others have heard me say this, and what I found in my journey, in my yo-yo journey, was that the very things that I would skip whenever I would start a program are the very things that are really critical or key. And that is, I mean, you get a diet book, you get a diet program, you get anything. The first thing was, okay, what can I eat? What can I have? How many calories? What can I not eat? It's just like straight to the food. And
Mhm.
the notion, and they all say, get 8 hours of sleep. In the past, I never did that. They said, drink 8 glasses of water. Maybe no, I didn't do that either. Right. They said journal, write it down. I didn't do that either. But those three things, once I started and learned the value of those things, it made dealing with the plate easier. They were the foundation, because I don't know about you, but in the beginning and for so many years, I would get confused. I thought I was hungry and I was in fact thirsty.
Mm.
I thought I was hungry, I was thirsty. And you just don't realize that getting enough sleep, I mean, obesity, being overweight is a disease. It
Mhm.
is a disease. And the way that, and sleep and rest is critical for us to cure disease.
Right.
And that is part of that, get 8 hours of sleep, because your body needs it to process. Like if you're fasting, that's when
Mhm.
your body processes all those toxins. That's when all your systems go to work, right? When you're unconscious, when you're asleep, and we deprive ourselves, we miss ourselves of that. We miss that, and it leads to poor impulse control, right? And it sabotages us. And even the writing. I don't know if you did you do any journaling or any sort of writing along your journey?
Yes, I have I have a library of journals. So, um, I have many journals, and I still journal today. It's very therapeutic. And, I write not only about food, but just life in general, with whatever's on my heart and mind. And I do encourage other people to journal.
Mhm.
And it's really good to look back over the years to see where you were, say, 5 years ago compared to where you are today. And if we could just go back to the sleeping, Michelle, it's so important to turn off the noise. I know some people like to fall asleep with the television on. They like to fall asleep with their phone by the pillow. But be brave enough to turn off the noise. Turn off your phone for a couple of hours. It's going to be okay if it's important.
Great.
Call back, or they will leave a message or a text, and or just turn the volume down if you're just so afraid you're going to miss something. But by all means, enjoy your sleep by turning off the noise. Turn off the television, before you go to sleep, so that you can really get into that REM sleep, that deep sleep.
That is such good advice. I love that. I love that. So I do have a question for you, and I'm asking you this question because of what I think. I think people go through what I went through. So I'm going to ask as a question. Is that one of the things that kind of came into my consciousness in this last journey, as I've got this kind of insight, was that once I started to think about, why am I eating this? Why am I eating this particular thing right now? To get in touch with my food stories. What I initially found and what even brought it up was that, okay, I'm not full. I mean, I am full. I just ate, I'm full. Why do I still want to eat?
Good question.
Right. Yeah. What is that about? I mean, that was a game changer for me when I got real clear that the only problem the food would solve is hunger, and the only reason to eat is to satisfy hunger, and it needs to be nutritious and nourishing. Why what why do I still want to eat? And then that's when all the emotional stuff started to come up, how being around people, how somebody else is eating something. So I'm jealous. I'm jealous because they're, experiencing some pleasure from this food that I have chosen not to do, and to kind of get past that.
Mhm.
And but that took time and that took work just to have like a real clear vision that there's some that I'm using food to mask. I'm using the pleasure of food to mask some discomfort,
Mhm.
and then just sit and deal with the discomfort or figure out how to deal with the discomfort. So, can you like talk about people moving in or eating for reasons other than food hunger?
Sometimes it's because it's there. You don't really think about it unless it's there. So I have a 6-year-old grandson, and he loves, snacks and cookies and things like that. I Even though I've lost, the weight, I still have struggles with sweets. I have a terrible sweet tooth. So I find that I can't bring it in the house because he's not here all the time and he doesn't eat as much as I do. So if I see the cookies sitting there too long, oh, let me help eat the cookies so they don't go bad. And so what I've learned is that I buy snacks that he likes but I don't like. So I mean, you have to have hacks for everything. So um, if I know it's something that's going to be tempting, especially if there's coconut in it, I can't bring it across my threshold. Like things I just, I'm not crazy about it, but if it has coconut in it,
Uh-huh.
it it's going to be bad.
Uh-huh.
It's just because it's there, and like you said something a couple of weeks ago on this platform about if you're hungry, eat an apple. But if you don't want the apple, then you're really probably not hungry. And I've adopted that. So, when I'm reaching for something, I'm asking myself, am I really hungry, or do I see it and I just want to eat it? Am
Mhm.
I bored? Am I, what's really going on? So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. So yeah, I've adopted that. Like if you're really hungry, grab an apple
Right.
instead of the chips, or instead of the cookie or the muffin.
Right.
um, Grab an apple because the apple will help curb the hunger, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what the apple does, and what getting something else does? It gives you time to sit and think. And I think part of what we have to learn to, we always feel like we have to be doing something, right? And
Right.
part of what I figured out is sometimes you have to sit with things. You have to just sit and let, maybe it's meditation. I don't think I have the attention span to meditate. I haven't gotten there yet, but and let things come to you. And even with you were talking about the food being there. As much as I have insight around this topic in these issues, I still find myself just kind of like pulling things apart. I'll give you a prime example. My sweetie and I have been in bed, like, we're in bed all the time, every night. But a couple of nights, I've noticed that we're in bed watching television, and he'll get a snack right on his side of the bed, maybe some potato chips or some cookies or whatever it is he snacks on. And I'm not tempted I'm not tempted by those snacks, not at all. But I because I'm new, I think about what I used to do, right? And so I sit and I think, man, in the old days, he's there with that bag of potato chips. We're in bed. It would have been nothing for me just to reach over and put my hand in the bag and get some, just because he got them, right?
Right.
And like,
right? You weren't thinking about it till you
I
saw
wasn't
it.
thinking about it. I wasn't hungry. It's just like it's a habit. Or even this. You're with and I think I may put this in the group. You're with a crowd of people, right? It's just you and me. This is just you and me talking. Colleen comes up and she has a bag of something, and because she's being hospitable, she says, "Want some?"
All
And
the time. Happens all the time.
you just put your hand in there, just because it's offered. And that is and we are so, I think that once we just raise our consciousness and with every single thing, just ask, why am I eating this right now?
Right.
Why this? Why now? And does it have anything to do with am I really hungry? Or
Right.
is it, this offer, she's being hospitable, right? That's a nice thing. Would she perceive my not accepting her offer as being inhospitable, or ungrateful or something? So now I'm eating out of gratitude. That's the emotion, right? And whereas just to think, all right, no, thank you. I mean, that's the response. No,
Right.
thank you. Just and she's not going to give it a second thought, right? And she's not going to give it a second thought. And now it's not going to be on my whip or my waist or my hips. But what I was able to unpack for myself, and because it's me and I think I'm just a microcosm of everything that's going on, is that I was eating too much of the wrong things for the wrong reasons, and I was doing it unconsciously.
Right.
And here's the thing: we're looking at four different elements. We're looking at too much, we're looking at the wrong things, we're looking at the wrong reasons, and we're looking at consciousness. And so, in order for us to get bodies that we love, right? Get bodies that we're proud of, get bodies that we can be happy with, and really live authentically, right? And not using food to mask our reasons, we got to deal with all four of them. First, we got to raise our awareness, right? And get conscious about the fact that we really aren't hungry. We're just eating it because. Then we got to unpack the reason. Am I eating? Is food joy to me? Is food joy? Is it fun? Is it culture? Is it entertainment? Is it pleasure? Is it a cure for loneliness? Am I using it for companionship? Am I using it because I'm disappointed? Any multitude of reasons. We have to get to, am I eating for the right reason?
Right.
And sometimes we can't, until we sit with it. I want to get back to it. Until we sit with it, we think it's hunger and it's something else. And so we have to figure out who just showed up. What just happened? Why am I eating this right now? What happened an hour ago, 30 minutes ago, is it? And that's when you eat an apple. So the apple gives you time. The apple gives you time to peel back what's really going on. And then you can deal with, all right, I'm at cheese, and nothing against Cheesecake Factory, but just because they serve you a plate that's 1,000 calories worth of food doesn't mean that we have to eat the entire plate, even though we might have a story in our head from growing up that says clean your plate, right? we all didn't. Who didn't grow up with parents saying clean your plate?
Right.
We don't throw away food.
And before you get dessert, if you don't eat all your food, you're not getting
You're
dessert.
not getting dessert. And so now we have a story now that dessert is reward.
Right.
And that's another road. That's another road right there. So all of this is just, I mean, it's all, coming at us all the time. But now we got to, figure out, but we've got the too much dealt with, and now we've got to deal with the right thing, right?
Mhm.
Because we have messages on television, on radio, and all sorts of ads that,
Mhm.
that tell us if we eat certain things, if we go certain places to eat, that we're going to feel and have a certain experience. And we get lured by the desire for that experience and what that experience means and the
Right.
food attached to it. And so we have to be real critical. We have to be super critical, because these restaurants and these food manufacturers don't care anything about our bodies. They don't care anything about our health. They don't.
You're right. So you remember back on Fourth and H, where listeners were bringing cakes and pies and all types of, we always had food around us.
Yes,
So that has not changed as the company has changed. It's not so much listeners, but businesses.
absolutely.
They'll drop off cookies, they'll drop off barbecue. There's always food. Do we have to eat it? No.
No.
But when the announcement goes out, oh, such and such company has provided such and such in the break room, everyone gets up like a little beeline, and they go to the break room to eat.
Hmm.
Not because we're hungry per se, but because, oh, that was so nice of them to bring us this. And we must partake of it because it would be rude. We don't want it to go to waste.
Right.
And that, well, we haven't been in the office in over a year, but that would happen at least once a week.
Absolutely. And Nancy, and it was free.
And it was free.
And it was free. So we have to, I mean, just
Yeah.
there's like a, I think that there's a whole nother book, around that, because here you think about it, with what we do, and especially if you're in sales and you're working with clients.
Mhm.
There's absolutely a connection between food and relationship and how people bond with one another. So, but we just have to be conscious about that, right? And even with, people bringing food to the stations when we work the stations, a lot of times it is affection. It's how we express affection. I'm doing this, I'm making this for you because I have a certain appreciation for you. I love you. I'm going to make your favorite dish. And so in many cases, we're using food as an expression of love, and people accept it as an expression of love. The food is the tool. But I will tell you, I heard something today that was just profound to me. And there was a woman on, and they were talking about Mother's Day.
Mhm.
And the mother said, all you don't have to bring your mother anything. All mothers want is your time.
Mhm.
And there, we're at a point. Part of, I think, this bringing food to show this and to show that is part of our belief that we're just not enough by ourselves. And food is a way for us to kind of get past that. You look like you're about to have something to say.
No, I was thinking about when you go to a party or if you go to an event, a person, a friend's party or a company event, one of the first things people will complain about, you could have a great presentation, but if the food is not on point, people say it was a terrible party because it was a terrible wedding. The food was awful. I mean, it could have been a beautiful bride, beautiful ceremony. Oh, it was awful. The food sucked. The food was
Yes,
terrible. We put so much around food, which is really to nourish us and to strengthen us, but we've made it bigger than the occasion.
absolutely. We've made it bigger than the relationship.
Hmm.
We've made it bigger than people. And you say that, and I'm just, I'm going to be transparent here because I want to tell the truth in this forum or just all the time. But
Hmm.
in one of the chapters in my book, I talk about going to brunch and being really a brunchaholic, being a brunch queen. And the name of the chapter is Words with Friends. And once I started down this road, I
Hmm.
remember going to lunch with a friend. You know her, by the way. And uh, and she said to me, Michelle, the first time we went out to lunch, you never looked up from your plate.
Wow.
And yeah, I was stunned. I'm like, no, yes, I did. And she says, no, 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 you didn't. And it just, I had to sit with that. I had to let that settle over me. And I thought, this lunch that was supposed to be a connector of people became a barrier. It was a barrier to authentic communication. And what I knew was that if I had done it with her, I had done it for others, and I had been doing it for decades. And I missed some realness. I missed some realness because we were talking about what was on the menu. We were talking about the biscuits or what are you going to get? What do you have? Oh, that looks good. Rather than connecting with the person that's sitting next to me in front of me. And it just made me sad. It made me sad. Um, so that's, I mean, that you're right. It takes work. It takes work for us to, to shift our attention to the people in front of us away from the food. But just like we talked about at these events, I saw it in myself. Again, you and I know the same thing. You go to a party, you go to a reception, a client's having a reception, you don't know anybody there. What's the first thing you do? The first thing you do is you go to the buffet table, the appetizers, you get a drink, you get something in your hand. So at
Yeah.
least you aren't like standing there looking crazy.
Right.
It's good. And then after a while, maybe you meet some people and you start talking and it's okay. But I thought to myself, what if we flipped the script and when we went to events like that, the first thing we did was make a connection with somebody, rather than the bartender,
Hmm.
rather than what if we just change that? And and I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm a salesperson, right? I'm a salesperson. I'm comfortable with people. Maybe I'm not as comfortable with people as I think I am. That when I go to something like this, I need, right?
Hmm.
So you know, that's kind of the space. That's the space that we're in. So I do want to. We've been talking. We're almost getting close to the end of our time. I just want to make sure if there are any questions, if any questions that anybody has, please jump on now. Put your questions in the chat, because here's somebody that made a decision, lost the weight 15 years ago, has kept it off,
For
and
the most part.
you
I said for the most part.
for the most part, right? For the most part, but has done it. And here's the thing: has done it in real time, has done it in the real world. And so you go because there's so many people who go through a divorce and gain weight and never get it off. There's so many people that have a diagnosis, I guess, of
Mhm.
hypertension or problems with their eyes or problems with their knees or any health issues that still can't find a way to make the decision that you made, right? There are people that have decided that, okay, I'm a grandmother now, and I'm just going to sit here and watch my kids, right? Right. I'm going to let them run around, that. So to make some decisions about taking control of your life and your body and being active in just in what we deal with every day is not is no small feat.
Well,
Is
you have to get over fear. You have to get over the fear of change.
mm-hmm,
It can be very fearful for people. And I was married for 15 years. And we dated 4 years before that when we were in college and after college. So leaving that 2-decade relationship was fearful.
Mhm.
But I told myself I would be, damaged goods if I got divorced, if I, was single with children, and that wasn't true. I'm single. I am single, but I'm single by choice. Like I am comfortable with myself. Like I don't need that label of being someone's wife or someone's girlfriend, and nothing is wrong with that. But I had to grow into that comfort zone where I'm okay with being Nancy,
Mhm.
and that's where I am now.
So
And I
how would
went to playing the piano and I went back to doing a lot of things that I let go. So yeah, it's all good.
how would you describe Nancy today?
Um, a lot of who I was before, but didn't know that I was before. I feel like I'm a lot more confident, a lot more healthier for sure. Even when I went back for my follow-up visit, my doctor couldn't believe it. He was like, "Who is this person that's lost all of it?" You know how they look at the chart. They
Right.
look at where you were the last visit to where you are now. And he said, I don't even know you. I don't recognize you. So I'm back to more being who I should have been before.
Mhm.
And I'm a lot more confident in if I don't want to be defined by how you want to define me, that's okay too. I'm not willing to lose myself or compromise to please someone else. They have to be okay with who I am now.
Mhm.
And I think I compromised too much. And by doing so, I was no longer myself.
Mhm.
I was trying to morph into what someone wanted me to be. And
Mhm.
now this is who I am. So take it or leave it. And I'm choice you decide, I'm okay with it.
So I do want to ask you this. I love that answer, but I actually have a couple more questions. Is that did you find that once you transformed your body, right?
Mhm.
Um, that impacted other areas of your life, how you moved around in other areas of your life.
Yeah,
Did you see changes in your professional life?
yeah.
Did you see changes in your other relationships with people? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So this is funny. I have dated since my divorce. So my belief that no one else was going to be interested in me because I was divorced, mom of two, that went out the window.
Mhm.
But the guy that I was dating at the time, I shared my weight loss story with him. And this is what he said. Oh, if I had met you before you lost your weight, we probably wouldn't be dating. And I said, well, I would still be who I am on the inside. And he said, well, but I'm just not attracted to fluffy girls. So, and he was, I mean, that was his truth. But
Mhm.
I'm glad I lost the weight for me and not for someone else,
Mhm.
a man or a female. I lost it for me. And
Mhm.
I'm not with that guy anymore. So I'm glad I didn't do things to please him because he's not even in the picture
Right.
as
Right.
romantic interest. So
Right.
sometimes we do things to be a people pleaser,
Mhm.
and there's no liberty in that. There's no freedom
Mhm.
because you're not being true to yourself.
Right. Right. So Nancy, I do want to say this by way of observation.
Okay.
Is that when you when you change your outside, when you're truly transformed on the outside, there's an internal transformation that happens too. So
Right.
so when you changed your body, you did change who you were on the inside. And I'm not talking about values and character and things like that. I'm talking about you changed um you changed some other things. Like you became a more confident person.
Right.
You became a freer person. You
Right.
became a more peaceful person. You became a more joyful person. You
Right.
became you some there was some inside stuff that
Hmm.
had to happen in order for your external transformation to stick.
Right.
So it is that in as much as he might not have been attracted to a fluffy girl, right? There's something about your persona too, those
Right. Absolutely.
things that you didn't have when you were fluffier.
Right.
So, I love
Hey,
that.
hey, Michelle.
Yes.
Lisa has a question, and it's on the screen.
Okay.
What are your suggestions for handling the pressures of dating and trying to control your diet? From Lisa.
Is that for Michelle or for me to?
I think that's
Um,
good.
I think that's for, yeah, I think that's for you, Nancy.
What are your suggestions for handling the pressures of dating and trying to control your diet? For me, people, I get asked this question often. Why aren't you dating? Why aren't you in a relationship? Why are you single? As if that's a disease, like it's a disease to be single. So with the pressures, I would say you have to do what's best for you. Um, I'm single, like I said, by choice. I could be in a relationship, but and I have male friends, but I like my peace, and I'm a very independent person, and my time is very valuable to me. And right now, it's divided between my grandson, my job, Nancy's interests. So I'm not willing to carve any more time out for a boyfriend per se. I may go on a date, I may have a conversation with the opposite sex, but it's not a priority for me. So if it's a priority for someone, then date. Go on websites, have friends introduce you, but you can influence what you eat and where you eat. I've been invited to places, like I'm not a sushi person. I know some people love sushi. I've tried it a couple of times, and I've just concluded I'm not a sushi person. So you can have a say so in what you eat, where you eat, and most importantly, when you eat. Like I would encourage anyone listening, try to have your dinner before 7, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock at the latest, because eating late and then going home and going to sleep, that can add the extra weight on as well. So and I will say this: I was approached by a guy at church. This was before COVID hit, and he wanted to take me to dinner. And I explained to him that a lunch date would be better because of my schedule and my responsibilities. My boys were still young, and he just wouldn't sway. He it was like dinner or nothing, so we never went out, and I was okay with that. So don't give in because you feel afraid. Well, if I don't go, I might not get asked again. That's okay.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Nancy, that was a in my estimation, um, the inflexibility and the unwillingness to compromise on that was a
Hmm.
sign. You know, it, if something's to me so insignificant, really as small as to whether we eat at noon or whether we eat at 8, is something that you
Hmm.
can't find some room to flex on. What happens if something big comes along? So, but
And
that's
he approached me. I didn't ask him to take me out. He approached me. Hey, I saw you. He said, I see you every Sunday, and I'd like to take you out. So I gave him the opportunity that worked for me. It didn't work for him, so it wasn't a match.
right, right, right. And you know what? I don't know the fellow, but here's one way that I see it as I kind of like dissect food stories.
Hmm.
Right? Is that I believe that we all the issue is we attach certain meaning. We attach a meaning to a food, or we attach a meaning to a food situation. That's where the story comes in, and then we get attached to what that meaning is, and that guides how we react to the food, how much we eat, whatnot. All right. So even with, going out and dating. And then I think about younger dating. You meet somebody and you say, oh my gosh, he took me to Ruth Chris, or he
Right.
took me to blah blah, or we went to such and such and we had lobster and we did this and it was on the water and it was all fabulous and wonderful. And then all your friends are like, oh my God, he's a great catch, right? Because there's something attached to the fabulousness of the
Right.
night, and it's attached to the food. Whereas if you said, you know what, I met him, I liked him, we went to the package store, we got a 6-pack, and we just sat out on the water and we talked.
Right.
That's all y'all did. He didn't take. He, he,
Well, I love pancakes, so I would not be opposed to going on a date to IHOP because I love IHOP's pancakes.
wait,
If I said that to one of my girlfriends, oh, we went to IHOP, you went where? What? You have to be true to yourself.
right, exactly. You got to be true to yourself. And so back to this guy. So I believe in his mind, he had a story that was created that, I am attracted to this woman. She seems like she's super cool and special. I want to show her a fabulous night. What I think is a fabulous night. I want to show I want to show her what I think is a wonderful time. I want to present my best. And in his way of thinking, it was that. And that to do something other than this thing.
Developed into that if we had gotten to know, but I don't know you. So first of all, I want to go during the day where where people can see, you know, see what's going on. And then as time goes on, maybe we can move to something else. But I think too many women cave in to the pressure of, oh, he asked me, so I have to do what he said. When no, they're asking you for your time. You have a say so. If you don't like shrimp, don't go to Red Lobster. No, I'm serious. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
conversation, and I was that chick. Oh, I know I don't like shrimp, but he wants to take me to Red Lobster. Okay, so I'll go. No, you know what? I appreciate the offer, but I really don't like shrimp. Can we go to Longhorn? And then you have conversation. You guys come to an agreement. But what I was doing back then, that my younger self, whatever he wanted, I was afraid to speak up and speak my truth,
Mm-hmm.
which was on me. But those days are behind me now, so I'm glad about that.
And I think that that's a wonderful way to end. I think that's a wonderful way to end on those days are behind you.
Right.
You're brand new, right? You're speaking your truth.
Mhm.
And the reality is, in order we can't find our truth in a basket of fried shrimp, for real. That's not where our truth is. Our truth is owning our decisions, is owning our decisions about how we want to feel, how we want to look, what the contributions we want to make in this world. And if we're using food as a substitute
Right.
for how we manage situations or managing situations, then we can't live in our own power. We can't live in our full power.
Mhm.
So the more we can recognize and get away from eating too much of the wrong thing for the wrong reasons and being conscious about what we do, the more we can take control of our lives. Nancy, I want to thank you so much for sharing
Uh,
your stress
thank you for having me.
story. I am so proud of you. It is so good to see
Thank
you.
you.
I hope I can see you when I'm in Atlanta. I'm going to be in Atlanta.
Make sure you reach out.
Yes, 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 yes. And thank you, moderator extraordinaire,
Yeah.
Colleen, for manning the chat. Thank you for tuning in. If any of this conversation has been meaningful to you, if you would like a replay of it, you can check it out on the I Am Brand New YouTube channel, or you can join the I Am Brand New Facebook group. We get more of this all day long. It's about raising our consciousness. It's about getting to our own power, our own truth, getting some power, some freedom, some joy, some confidence that's real and not just in food. Good night. See you next Sunday.